All right, everyone. So the ceasefire between the Armenians and the Azeris has reportedly been broken. This isn't really surprising at all, given the fact that these two people have been fighting and arguing over who owns this one region, which they both claim for themselves. I am talking about Nagorno-Karabakh. For decades and decades and decades, they have been fighting over this since the fall of the Soviet Union, going all the way back to the late 1980s. So none of this is really surprising. This region, obviously, is going to be a source of continual tension and friction, not just between the Armenians and the Azerbaijanis, but also between the two regional powers that are supporting them, the Turks and the Russians. As you guys probably already know, if you guys have been listening to me and reading the news this whole time, the Turks are supporting the Azerbaijanis, and the Russians are kind of supporting both sides, profiting from both sides, giving weapons to both sides, and also getting oil from Azerbaijan or natural gas from Azerbaijan. And the Russians have been providing weapons to both the Azeris and the Armenians. But in all fairness, the Russians, from what I have been reading, are leaning more on the side of the Armenians. As I've said before, the Azeris are a strategic partner for Russia, but the Armenians are an ally of Russia. The Azeris are an extremely close ally to Turkey, and the Azeris, in fact, see themselves as being one with Turkey, as being synonymous with Turkey. So this is really about Turkey not just supporting an ally, but expanding her hegemony in that region. But going back to what I said earlier, the ceasefire, which was single-handedly brokered by Russia a number of weeks ago, has been reportedly broken, and there are reports coming out from Armenia, from Russia, from Azerbaijan, stating that there has been some fighting going on. Not surprising at all. There is a report here. I believe this report is from Armenian media because the English, the grammar is not very good. But regardless, it says here that the Russian military, the Russian army, has reported just today that the ceasefire has been violated in Karabakh and that there has been fighting between the Azeris and the Armenians. It says here that the Armenian army reported attacks from Azerbaijan on two villages that are under the control of Karabakh forces. The Azerbaijani Defense Ministry said, quote, adequate countermeasures, unquote, had been taken against provocations from the other side, but added that the truce was currently being respected. So there's some diplomatic talk and all of this, but overall, the ceasefire has been violated, and this is not going to just end. There have been some skirmishes today, but it's not just going to end with that. It's going to continue, and it's going to be more intense. It's going to continue to intensify, and it's going to continue to be exasperated because, like any other regional ethnic conflict where two different ethnic groups are fighting over some land, it never freaking ends. Protestants versus Catholics in Northern Ireland, there's still tensions between those two groups. Maronites and Muslims, Maronites and Sunni Muslims, to be specific, still going on today. Palestinians and Israelis, I don't have to tell you what's going on over there. Everyone knows they still don't like each other. They're still arguing, and they still have all sorts of tension over who owns what territory. This is extremely common. The Chinese and the Indians fighting over Tibet. It never ends. So this is going to be an ongoing crisis, and it's going to continue to be exploited. Because as long as there is fighting, there's going to be exploiters. There are going to be opportunists who will capitalize on this. The fighting is beneficial for both Turkey and Russia for very clear reasons. For one, as long as there's fighting between Armenians and Azeris, Turkey can just come in and say, Azerbaijan, you need our help. Yes. Now we have a reason to use our military, technology, our wonderful NATO military technology in this situation to help you guys out. Turkish drone technology destroys the Armenian soldiers. The Armenian military is pretty outdated and behind on a lot of things. They still have a military structure as if they're still living in the early 1990s. The Armenians did not have the drone technology that the Azeris have because the Azeris were being helped by Turkey, which is a major NATO military force. And so the Armenians got slaughtered. If I am not mistaken, in just a matter of days, literally thousands of Armenian soldiers were slaughtered, mainly by the drone technology given to the Azeris by Turkey, which will soon be the revived Ottoman Empire, because that is what this is about. Ultimately, the Azeris see themselves as being one, as being synonymous with the Turks. They are both a Turkic people. They both speak the same language. And there is a saying within Azeri politics in regards to Azerbaijan's relationship with Turkey, and that is two states, one nation. We are one nation, one ethnic group, but we have two different states, two governments. But nonetheless, they are joining those two governments together. And when you see photos of Erdogan with the leader of Azerbaijan, Mr. Aliyev, that's his name. I have difficulty remembering names like that. When you see Erdogan and Aliyev together, you see them surrounded by both the flag of Azerbaijan and the flag of Turkey. All these flags just mashed up together because they really see themselves as being one country. So this is not just about, Turkey helping a strategic ally in the region, or just say it in a BBC sort of condescending way. This is Turkey helping out its strategic ally in the region. That's not really what this is about. This is about Turkey expanding itself, expanding its hegemony, as we have been seeing in numerous different areas within the Mediterranean, be it in Libya, be it in Syria, be it near Cyprus or in Cyprus. Turkey is expanding her influence and her power. It really is just that obvious. Well, where's the United States involved in all this? The United States isn't doing anything about this because Turkey is a very, very close ally to the Americans. Just like when Saudi Arabia was slaughtering the Yemenis by the tens of thousands, America supported Saudi Arabia wholeheartedly because Saudi Arabia is a very strategic ally for NATO against, ultimately, Russian influence. We say Iranian influence because the Yemen rebels were being backed by Iran, but ultimately it's about fighting against Russian encroachment in whatever part of the world that America wants to control, which is ultimately the whole thing. Because we are dealing with two empires who have historically competed with each other, but have also historically allied with each other when it comes to fighting the Germans. So there's some interesting background on this situation. For one, this is very serious. Like the fighting between Turkey and Russia through proxy, because that's what this is. Russia is backing the Armenians, while at the same time tactfully backing the Azeris, and Turkey is backing the Azeris. This is all very, very serious, like very, very serious stuff, because we are seeing the revival of empires. That's what this is. We're seeing the revival of empires, and we're seeing these two empires, soon to be empires, really, but we are seeing these two regional powers, Turkey and Russia, really clashing with one another because they both want to establish their former glory. They both want to establish their former powers, but they will not be able to bring their plans into fruition if they don't eventually clash. It's inevitable. It has to happen. They are trying to maintain diplomacy, but eventually they are going to clash. Just like during World War I, when the Ottoman Empire was trying to control Armenia, the Russians eventually intervened and fought the hell out of the Turks in the town of Van and in the surrounding areas. The Turks and the Russians had some pretty vicious battles during the Great War, during the First World War. And yeah, it's pretty horrendous. The Turks, it's very interesting. The Turks, they want a 30-mile corridor connecting Azerbaijan to its enclave, Nakhchivan. So if you look at a map, you have Azerbaijan here, you have Armenia here, and then on this side of Armenia, you have Nakhchivan, which is considered to be an Azeri enclave, but really it's part of Azerbaijan. And so Azerbaijan wants to build a corridor connecting mainland Azerbaijan to Nakhchivan, and they're going to do so by building a corridor connecting Nagorno-Karabakh, which the Armenians have been fighting over, and the Armenians want, and the Armenians were occupying for decades until now, and Nakhchivan. They want to connect these two sides. So there's going to be this giant corridor connecting Azerbaijan to Nakhchivan, and it's going to go right through Armenia. Imagine that. That's like saying, Mexico, the Mexican military goes into Texas and says, well, certain parts of Texas historically belong to us, so we're going to take this part. We're taking the Alamo back. Remember the Alamo? And, oh, by the way, we want to better our relations with Canada, so we're going to build a giant highway connecting Mexico to Canada. And the highway has to go through the United States. Like, we would freak. But, to us Americans, it's not a big deal at all. But to the Armenians, to any human being, it would be a huge deal. Like, this giant highway is going through your country to connect the territories of your enemy. And the highway is going to begin on a region that historically belongs to the Armenians. The Armenians have been living in Nagorno-Karabakh for centuries. There's tons of archaeology to back this up. You have all these ancient crosses, thousands of ancient monasteries and churches, all of which belong to the Armenians, and they're all there in Nagorno-Karabakh because that region historically belongs to the Armenians. On top of that, you have this entire policy of Turkey to revive the Ottoman Empire, and Turkey wants to start its own NATO. It has already started this project with the Turkic Council. You have Turkey, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, I believe Uzbekistan is a part of it, and Hungary, while not being an official member of the Turkic Council, has a part in the Turkic Council. And it's very interesting. Hungary, in that country, there is a lot of neo-Turanianism. What's Turanianism? Turanianism is basically the reverence for the Turkic race. And so this idea of pan-Turanianism, this idea of all Turkic countries uniting together, this ideology is becoming very, very strong, and it exists even in countries like Hungary, which is a majority Christian country. And the leader of Hungary, Viktor Orban, for years has been pushing this ideology of neo-Turanianism or really pan-Turkism. And he has said numerous times in meetings with the Turks, we are related, we are the same people. And so Hungary is now a part of this attempt of making a Turkish NATO. And what's so interesting is that for years, the conservatives in both the United States, North America, and Western Europe were lauding and adulating and praising Hungary as this centerpiece, as this epitome of conservative values. Look, the Hungarians are fighting against the migrant invasion. I remember hearing all the praise for Hungary from the modern day right wing in 2015 during the migrant crisis. I remember hearing it all. And isn't it amazing that it was Turkey that accelerated the migrant crisis in conjunction with Germany? And it was Hungary who was the biggest vocal opponent to Europe absorbing the migrants. And yet, now Hungary is one of the biggest allies of Turkey in Europe. I mean, the biggest ally of Turkey in Europe is Germany, but Hungary is right up there. Hungary has been supporting Turkey hardcore, and Turkey has been supporting Hungary. Keep your eyes on Hungary, because the Hungarians have a plan that by the mid-2020s, they're projecting that their military, the Hungarian military, is going to be ramped up, it's going to be revamped, it's going to be advanced, and it's going to be tremendously bettered in its capacity. And this is going to be done with the help of Turkey. Turkey is going to help build up Hungary's military capacity. So here they are working together. And this is happening. I mean, this whole conflict between the Azeris and the Armenians is happening in the context of the rise of the Ottoman Empire. So we're seeing right now the rise of the Ottoman Empire. We are seeing the revival of it all in the situation in which Turkey has helped Azerbaijan take a chunk of territory that was historically and currently inhabited by ethnic Armenians. This is the revival of an empire. Now, Turkey is very clever. Turkey isn't just going to invade mainland Armenia right now. When a government wants to start something that is dramatic and that is very violently different from the status quo, when a government wants to do something that is just a very vicious shift from what the world is accustomed to, that government will always begin with something that enough people can agree on. For example, let's say a dictator wants to put a bunch of people in concentration camps. Well, he's not going to start out with just putting, little old ladies in a concentration camp, like, get in the bus, grandma, you're going to die. Like, that's not how it works. He is always going to begin with people that a lot of members of society already don't like. Criminals, beggars, things like that. Illegal immigrants, refugees who have an ominous presence in society, maybe drug addicts, alcoholics, people who are mentally insane, people who are not really franchised or enfranchised in society, people who are not really normally accepted in society. So they will always begin with that. They'll begin with the criminals, because who likes criminals, right? Oh yeah, they're killing criminals. Great, And that's how it started with the Holocaust. The Nazis were putting criminals in the in camps. They were killing criminals, and it was like, okay, who cares about those people? But then they begin to escalate the situation into killing civilians, and before you know it, they're killing people who have mental or physical handicaps. They're killing certain people of certain ethnic groups. But it always begins with the situation that doesn't really shock us. It's like baking bread. When you put the yeast in water, they say don't put the yeast in cold water because it'll shock the yeast. You got to put the yeast in warm water. You have to start, everything out very, very slowly and gradual. And that's what Turkey is doing. So they don't just hit mainland Armenia. They hit a region that is controversial, that the international community sees as a part of Azerbaijan. Well, Nagorno-Karabakh, historically, it was always inhabited by Armenians. Thousands of churches, monasteries, stone crosses, or I think they call them khachars. It doesn't matter. Even though all of this really substantiates that Armenians have always been living in Nagorno-Karabakh, Nagorno-Karabakh is internationally recognized as being a part of Azerbaijan. So they hit that area. Before you know it, they're going to be hitting mainland Armenia. Turkey wants to build a railway system that will further connect Azerbaijan to Turkey. This is going to be a part of a railway system that has existed for a number of years now. It is a railway system that begins in Baku, it goes through Georgia, through Tbilisi, and then it ends up in Turkey. Well, because they have taken Nagorno-Karabakh and they want to build this corridor connecting Nagorno-Karabakh to Nakhchivan, which is a part of Azerbaijan, they want that railway system to go through Nakhchivan. And this railway system is going to go through an area of Turkey called Idgir. And I'm not sure if I'm saying this correctly, but this is the area, Igdir. This area borders right with Armenia, and this is the area where Mount Ararat is. It's the area where Mount Ararat is. Very, very fascinating. Very fascinating. And how did the Ottomans, when they wanted to genocide the Armenians, how did the Ottomans systematically bring in hundreds of thousands of people to their deaths? They brought all these people into the Syrian desert and had them go through a death march. You know, we talk about the Bataan Death March. The Turks did this. They put all these people by the thousands in trains. It was part of the Berlin-Baghdad railway system, which was engineered by the Germans. And they put all these people in trains, and they had them go to through the wilderness in Syria. And the train stations for the Berlin-Baghdad railway system literally became concentration camps. And that's how they were able to kill so many people so quickly. The Germans were observing this, and the Germans were greatly inspired by the systematic way that the Turks murdered and slaughtered the Armenians. And they wanted to emulate that when they did their own genocide. And this, I think, is a sign. This whole situation really is a presaging sign that we are about to hit a global conflict. I'm not saying this is going to happen tomorrow, but it's eventually going to happen. And this conflict between Turkey and Russia and Armenia and Azerbaijan over this region, it's a sign that we are transitioning towards a pre-World War political atmosphere. We see the American empire declining itself. America has been extremely occupied with two things over anything else: coronavirus and the election, although the drama of the election is beginning to fade away, although there's always going to be a conversation about that that's going to resound through the political air of the United States. But America is occupied by this. America right now does not give a damn about what's happening around the world. Before COVID, it did. We focused on Saudi Arabia. We focused on Syria. We were focusing on Germany. And the COVID thing just took over the whole situation. But eventually, COVID is going to dissipate. But by then, it's going to be too late. And the Americans really are going back to its old custom of isolationism, which is what happened before World War I and also before World War II. American isolationism. So we are seeing the world really returning. We're not really seeing a new era or a new stage or anything like that. We are seeing a return to the past. And old enemies are continuing to be old enemies again. And it's very interesting. You know, Armenia and Azerbaijan had a war back in the late 80s and early 90s. The war ended in 1993 with the Armenians defeating the Azeris and taking Nagorno-Karabakh, and they occupied that region, and they were occupying that region until now. Well, when the Azeris and the Armenians were killing each other in the early 90s, the prime minister of Turkey at the time, his name was Süleyman Demirel, and he was being pressured to back the Azeris. But the Turks were very, very hesitant to do so. Why? Because a Russian military leader by the name of Yevgeny Shaposhnikov warned that any intervention in this conflict would drive the planet, quote, these are his words, to the brink of a third world war. And that is why the Turks did not get involved in the first conflict. But now they're involved. So, to use and to reference the wisdom of Yevgeny Shaposhnikov, we are entering into that brink of another world war. That railway system that Turkey wants to build on that Igdir region, that's where Mount Ararat is. Mount Ararat is where humanity began after the flood. And it may be the same place where a lot of humanity is going to end. You guys just heard some theology. God bless.